So today what I'm going to be talking to you about is my death experiences. Now in total I've had 3 death experiences. Now the first one I can't remember because it was that long ago and I don't really want to remember it. So yeah, and over time I have generally forgotten. But the second and the third one I do remember. But all I can tell you about the first one was I know that I wasn't in a nice place, like at all. So my second um, death experience was what some people might know as like a demon realm, which is where you are completely cut off from everything. You cannot taste, you cannot see, you cannot sense, hear, you can't feel anything at all. Now, what it felt for me was like as if I was suspended just in abyss. No light, no nothing. I tried to move my arms around, I couldn't feel any wind. I I know I tried to shout, nothing came out. I tried everything that I could to try and figure out where I was. And yeah, I couldn't figure out where anything was. So in order for me to sort of explain to you the reason why I've had these like death experiences is because when I was 16, um, my my mother passed away. Obviously, as you've seen, one of my previous videos is dedication to her, and some of the photos, what I could find that were decent enough of my granddad as well. And not long after that, I started having what's known as blackouts or epileptic seizures, mainly blackouts. Um, and that is how most of my death experiences have come about, is by having those blackouts. That's one of many reasons why um, I've had the experiences that I've had. So I know that going through a blackout and what happens to you psychologically, that your body then gives off a certain chemical that will make you see things that aren't there. However, these things that I've experienced and gone through have been that lucid that they felt so real, and the dark place was yeah, was not nice at all. Now, I think one of many reasons why I had that dark or demon realm experience when I went through the process of dying was because of how I felt at the time, which was I felt like as if I didn't have any emotion. I felt like as if I didn't care about anyone or anything in the world. I just basically felt just like a walking, talking piece of meat, and there was nothing else in the world for me to do apart from go to work, come home, or go out with friends or something. There was nothing else to life, just that, and I saw people as objects instead of seeing them as people. And that experience right there was one of many big wake up calls in my life that I really need to stop doing that, because if I was to die, that's where I would go. So that was a big hint, which was cut your shit out. You know better than this. You can see the beauty in the world as well as the darkness. But if you choose to only focus on that, that's where you'll go. Now, with that being said, I'm going to move on to the third one, which for me is the most important one, even though the other ones have given me a very valid viewpoint on what will happen. But the third one for me was the answer to a lot of things. Now, again, I had a blackout while I was at home. There was a friend at home or an old friend that saw me have a blackout called the ambulance. And I'll just stop right there with the whole ambulance bit because that will tie in a bit later. Now, while I was having this blackout, from my experience, from my point of view, I actually woke up somewhere that wasn't dark, that wasn't horrible or anything like that. I woke up what I perceived to be upstairs in what you would know as heaven, which is very much like here. I'm going to recite how the events took place. Now, remember this key fact, which is my mum died or passed away when I was 16, and I believe this happened uh, when I was 20, 22, 23, maybe a bit older. But what I saw was and felt, I woke up in a field and I was on top of like 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 a hill. So yeah, I woke up on the hill and then I sat up and I didn't recognize where I was, but I could see clouds. I could feel that it was warm, but there was no wind. There was no wind at all. And in the distance, I saw a field, which looked like the cross between sort of like corn, like a cornfield, or just like really big grass. Again, I can't really tell because it was like both at the same time. And then when I looked a bit further than that, I saw like a red, like chaise lounge, 1960s red leather couch. And I'm like, okay, what's that doing in the middle of a field in the middle of like nowhere? So, and then stood up, and it was like as if in a flash I was right at the edge of this cornfield, and I was like, "Whoa, okay." Take in mind there wasn't like a significant difference between me being on the hill and the cornfield, but it probably would have took me, in realistic times, probably 5 or 10 minutes to get to the edge, and I was there like that. And then I walked through the cornfield and out to the other side. And when I actually walked up to the couch, have a guess who was sitting on that couch? It was my mother. And I know that she was having a conversation with someone, but I couldn't see who that someone was. I only saw her. And she was facing away from me. And she had to do like a double take. I mean, you know how it goes. You're just talking to someone and just nattering away as she was, facing this way. And she just looked, and she said to me, and I quote, "What are you doing here?" I was like, I, I, I don't know. And again, she said, and I quote, "It's not your time yet." And she waved a hand like this. And then before I knew it, it felt like as if I was falling, but I wasn't falling at the same time. Yeah, like as if I was falling from heaven. It was weird. And then when I actually sort of like got back to where I should be, it felt like as if my me and my body were trying to sort of like reconnect, like you know, like magnets when you try and get them to sort of like fix together, but you've got both the negative side and that you like pushing. It was like that. But then when I did actually connect to my body, it felt like as if I was being pushed in to my body and it felt incredibly small. So like the same thing as like Aladdin, like Genie in a Lamp. It's like so cramped. That's how I felt when it felt like as if I was coming back into my body through my crown chakra and was being pushed in and down to my feet. And it felt really weird, but yet it felt good at the same time. It's something that I can't really explain. But when eventually I did wake up, um, I remember waking up, looking at the ceiling, and looking over to my left, seeing the paramedic that was kneeling down by me, and he got really like frustrated, and he started like throwing his equipment back into his bag, and he had tears in his eyes, and he said to me, and I quote, he says, "Chris, I really didn't think you were going to come back then." So I know that him throwing his equipment back into his bag and shaking his head with disbelief was real. That he really didn't think that I was coming back. And how I know this was afterwards when I was taken to the hospital and I'd come round a little bit. I'd found out that this paramedic had actually injected me with adrenaline, and when he'd done that, I wasn't responding. So I know that he felt like as if he'd lost me. And he's like, "You can't get rid of me that easy, bitches. I'm back." But it felt good because I hadn't seen my mother for a long time, and yeah, I'd obviously I missed her. Then when I told like later on, like family members about what I experienced and other people, I was like, I'm telling you now that heaven does exist. No, I didn't see Mr. Man. It's because at the time I was as a bit of indifferent against him because I used to say, and I believe this is a quote from a movie that I watched, which is um, something along the lines of if my mother died or my mum died, that was the only God in my life, so that's the only one that I care about. So obviously people knew that, and that's who I saw. It's not a nice experience to go through, no matter how positive it is, because if you're not a strong person, even if you went to heaven or whatever you know it as, Valhalla, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. You might not be able to understand the reason why you're there and the people that you've seen, and you might never want to sort of live here on Earth again afterwards. But again, this is a reason why I'm doing this, is to share it with you so you understand that if you do go through these death experiences or any experiences where it feels like as if you're going to die or you are going through the process of, it'll help you understand a lot of things around you. That no matter what people say, that this doesn't exist and that doesn't exist. Just because you don't see it doesn't necessarily mean it's not there. I've got a lot of people that wanted me to go through certain experiences in life in order for me to understand what the aspect is. Because when I was younger, I was very, very, very like gun ho. I didn't care about my life. I didn't care whether I lived or died, and that's why. I think that is the main reason why I went um, through those experiences. Because yes, your consciousness does go into a different state of consciousness when you have a epileptic seizure or blackout. Maybe it was already set up the way that was. I don't know. I hope that like this video has helped you understand just a little bit more about me. And there will be future videos where I'll be talking more about like or bits about myself. Anyway, this is me signing off. This is your boy, Guardian of Light. Don't forget to like, subscribe, send a Harry Potter owl a telegram. I really don't mind. Thank you for watching. That'll be all, folks.